What if your soul is just as lost as you are? Imagine for a second that everything you've been told about the great beyond is a total fabrication. We love the idea of the soul as this majestic, all-knowing architect, a literal god-in-waiting that chooses to put on a human suit just to learn a few profound lessons about patience or love. It's a beautiful, poetic, and utterly staggering thought. We tell ourselves that the soul is the master and the body is just a limiting filter, a heavy coat we have to wear until the summer of eternity arrives. But what if that's just a bedtime story we tell ourselves to keep the existential dread at bay? What if the truth is far more jarring? What if the soul world isn't a realm of perfect wisdom, but is actually just as chaotic, flawed, and bewildering as the world we see when we turn on the evening news? This is the horizontal model of soul existence, and it is a jaw-dropping departure from everything we hold dear. If we stop assuming the soul is an advanced form and start considering that it might be just as confused as we are, the entire reality of human suffering shifts in a way that is both horrifying and strangely liberating. We're going to peel back the curtain on a version of spirituality that feels less like a divine cathedral and more like a cosmic triage center. It's a perspective that changes how we look at the most heartbreaking parts of our lives. If you've ever felt like the universe was asleep at the wheel, this might be the most eye-opening video you've ever seen. Part 1. The uncomfortable question nobody wants to ask. For centuries, we've leaned on the top-down soul model, or advanced soul model. It's a psychological safety net. We've built entire belief systems on a comforting idea. Our soul is a wise teacher, the body is the clumsy student. When life gets unbearable, when a child is diagnosed with cancer, when someone's mind fractures under the weight of schizophrenia, when a teenager can't see past the darkness enough to stay alive, then we tell ourselves there's meaning in it, a lesson, a plan, some grand cosmic curricula that we're too limited to understand. This story can be a solace, but for many, for those in the trenches of unbearable, inexplicable suffering, it can also feel like a cosmic insult. So here's a mind-blowing alternative that most spiritual traditions refuse to touch. What if the soul world operates on the same messy, trial and error chaos as everything else in the human world? What if souls aren't ascended masters looking down with infinite wisdom, but horizontal peers stumbling through existence right alongside us, making mistakes they can't fix, dealing with consequences they didn't anticipate, and sometimes getting it catastrophically wrong? What if, all along, we've been trying to force a beautiful story onto a messy, inexplicable reality? This isn't just philosophical speculation. This is about an educated rewriting of the entire narrative of human suffering, and the implications are both horrifying and strangely freeing. Part 2. When the safety net doesn't exist. Picture a young mother sitting in a sterile hospital room holding her 6-year-old daughter's hand while a doctor explains that the cancer is terminal. In the traditional spiritual framework, someone will eventually tell her that her daughter chose this, that her soul is advanced, that this brief, painful life is a fast-tracked lesson, a sacrifice made from some higher vantage point where wisdom and purpose reign supreme. But in the horizontal model, the unpopular truth that nobody wants to face is that child's soul might be just as blindsided as her parents are. There's no divine curriculum here. There's a glitch, a technical failure, a soul that entered a body without understanding the biological compatibility issues, without the foresight to see what was coming, without the capacity to fix what went wrong. The soul world in this model isn't populated by enlightened beings carefully selecting their earthly experiences. It's populated by entities that are learning, experimenting, and yes, failing. They don't have all the answers because they're asking the same questions we are. They're not watching from above with serene understanding. They're in the trenches with us, equally devastated when things go wrong. This flips the script from divine test to shared tragedy. Suddenly, childhood illness isn't a warrior's choice. It's an accident inside a universe that is still trying to figure out how to work properly. Part 3. The static between worlds. Consider someone living with schizophrenia, hearing voices that aren't there, unable to distinguish between what's real and what's imagined in a misfiring brain. The conventional spiritual explanation suggests a calm, observant soul behind the chaos, who is watching, learning, somehow benefiting from the experience. The horizontal truth is far more unsettling. If souls aren't inherently more intelligent or capable than we are, then the bridge between soul and brain becomes a precarious connection that can fail in enormous ways. Schizophrenia might not be a lesson at all, it might be static, a bad connection, a soul struggling to tune into a brain that's broadcasting on the wrong frequency. unable to establish clear communication because it simply doesn't have the engineering expertise to fix the problem. And here's what's truly breathtaking about this perspective. The soul itself might be experiencing the same confusion and terror as the person. There's no wise observer calmly taking note. There's just consciousness which is fragmented, frightened and lost in the woods of a malfunctioning mind, mirroring the patient's earthly experience because it's having the same experience from its own dimension. The soul isn't watching the mental illness happen. The soul is drowning in it too. Part 4. The weight of despair and impulse. Teenage suicide represents perhaps the darkest application of this horizontal model, and it's where the absence of cosmic safety nets becomes almost unbearable to contemplate. We want to believe that when a young person stands on that edge of oblivion, there's some higher aspect to themselves holding the steering wheel, some evolved consciousness that will intervene before the irreversible happens. But what if there isn't? What if a soul can enter a human life with the same impulsive, overwhelmed, despairing, short-sighted reasoning that a teenager has? What if it lacks the maturity, the perspective, the emotional regulation to handle a human life? In this model, there's no higher self waiting in the wings to take over when things get too dark. The soul might be just as susceptible to seeing a situation as intolerable, just as incapable of envisioning a future beyond the present pain, leading to a mutual decision to exit this life because neither the ego nor the soul knows how to cope. This is the existential reality of the horizontal model. We are truly alone in this at every level of consciousness. There's no wise guardian angel version of ourselves. There's just us multiplied across dimensions, equally confused, equally capable of making catastrophic mistakes born from desperation rather than wisdom. Part 5. When memory fades on both sides. In the top-down model, we've comforted ourselves with the idea that even when the brain fails, the soul remembers everything. That dementia might steal someone's earthly memories, but their essential self, their soul, remains intact, patiently waiting for release from a failing body. The horizontal model shatters this comfort. If the soul's capacity for memory and identity is actually linked to its current state, then dementia might represent true erasure. Not just a temporary blockage, but a genuine fading of the self across multiple dimensions of existence. As the brain degrades, the soul doesn't wait patiently on the other side. It becomes fragmented, unmoored. The empty house effect kicks in. Without the body's architecture to maintain its identity, the soul might lack the structure to hold itself together. It needs the brain as much as the brain needs it, and when one fails, both might dissolve into something unrecognizable. This means that when we watch someone we love disappear into dementia, we might not be watching a body lose connection to an intact soul. We might be watching a holistic disintegration across all levels of being. Part 6. The meaning of meaning itself. So what happens when we accept this staggering possibility, when we acknowledge that the other side might be just as messy, confused, fragmented and imperfect as this one? The entire framework of suffering changes. Pain is no longer instructional. It's not a carefully crafted lesson designed to elevate us. It's existential. It's an accident, a mistake, a byproduct of existence in a universe that's still debugging itself. The plan isn't predestined and carefully curated by wise cosmic architects. It's experimental, improvisational, and sometimes negligently thrown together by souls who are making it up as they go along. Justice isn't about karma or cosmic balance anymore. It's about luck, circumstance, making the best of whatever chaotic hand you've been dealt by a universe that doesn't owe you fairness, because it doesn't even fully understand fairness itself. The soul's role transforms from wise teacher into a struggling peer. You're not being guided through trials by a higher version of yourself. You're walking alongside a cosmic companion who's just as lost, just as scared, just as desperate to make sense of an existence that refuses to offer clear answers. Part 7. The paradox of empowerment. Here's the unexpected twist in this devastating revelation. The horizontal model might actually be liberating if those suffering from incurable diseases or trapped in intolerable situations aren't warriors chosen for a hard battle. If they're simply individuals caught in the crossfire of a universe still learning how to be, then something profound shifts in how we approach suffering. Human empathy becomes vital in a way it never was before. Medical intervention isn't just alleviating symptoms while the soul completes its lesson. It's genuinely preventing harm that has no higher purpose. We can't rely on some higher power version of ourselves coming to save the day because that version doesn't exist. We're truly in this together at every level of existence, and that means our compassion, our innovation, our determination to reduce suffering matters absolutely. You're not being tested. You're not paying off karmic debt. You're not in a classroom run by enlightened beings who know exactly what they're doing. You're in an imperfect reality, connected to an imperfect soul, trying to navigate an existence that nobody at any level has fully figured out yet. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's even beautiful in its own terrifying way. Part 8. The truth that sets you free. This horizontal model strips away the comfortable mythology that we've wrapped around suffering, but it replaces it with something more honest, radical responsibility. If souls aren't wise teachers orchestrating our pain for growth, then we can't passively accept suffering as meaningful. We have to actively fight it, we have to question it, we have to rage against it when it serves no purpose, because guess what? It might actually serve no purpose. The child with cancer deserves every medical intervention we can muster, not because we're interrupting a lesson, but because we're preventing meaningless suffering. The person with schizophrenia deserves treatment, support and compassion because they're not experiencing divine instruction. They're experiencing malfunction, and both they and their soul are equally desperate for relief. This is the unpopular truth that changes everything. You're not being guided through a perfect plan by a perfect consciousness. You're stumbling through existence alongside a soul that's just as imperfect, just as capable of mistakes, just as needful of grace and forgiveness as you are. And if that's true, if we're all peers in this cosmic chaos, then maybe the real meaning isn't found in divine purpose. Maybe it's found in what we choose to do with our shared confusion, our collective vulnerability, our mutual recognition that nobody has the answers and we're all making this up as we go. Maybe the truth isn't that your soul is wiser than you. Maybe the truth is that you and your soul are in this together, partners rather than master and student, equally responsible for creating whatever meaning can be found in a horizontal existence that offers no guarantees and no grand design. It only offers possibility, connection, and the breathtaking freedom that comes from accepting that we're all beautifully, terrifyingly, wonderfully lost.